Our next speaker is the Rev Cam McAdam. Cam has spent many years standing with families experiencing grief and loss. He's going to bring a practical view for us on the process of dying and the subsequent events to celebrate a person's life. He's currently Minister of the Word of the village church, Mt Eliza, where he's developed a reputation for strengthening the local community. Let's welcome Cam.
Talk about what that reputation is afterwards. Well, it's great to be here this evening to share with community members in such an important community conversation. As Jim said, I'm currently the Uniting Church Minister in Mt Eliza, but I've been in placement for just over 11 years. And prior to that, I was placed in Camperdown in the Western District, and actually was a school chaplain there as well. In over 20 years of ministry, I've conducted hundreds of funerals in the church, in funeral chapels and crematoriums, by gravesides, sometimes with hundreds of people present and sometimes with just a few. A number of those funerals have been for people from the wider community who have approached the church because a family member has died. Some for people who've been at a service that I've conducted and they want that for themselves or for a family member. But often the funerals that I conduct are for people who've been part of our church community. People who I've known well and often journeyed with in illness and dying. It's a privileged, sometimes difficult, sometimes joyful role, one that I'm really humbled to hold. From a personal perspective, my own father died about 18 months ago, and my mum has advanced dementia. And so for many years now, we've been living that long goodbye, a journey that has many experiences of grief and loss. Perhaps that's a talk for another time. People often ask me, how do you do what you do? How do you be alongside people who are dying and conduct funerals and work with people that are grieving? And strangely, I find this part of my role one of the most satisfying. Helping people at a time when they are most vulnerable, helping people say goodbye to someone they love in the best way possible is very fulfilling. Pastoral ministry leads me to work with people who grieve for all kinds of things, not just the death of a loved one. Relationships break down, transitions in work and life, traumatic events strike unexpectedly, and the death of a pet is often very understated. In my own life, the transition from Camperdown to Mt Eliza, whilst planned and exciting, led me to unexpected grief for a community that we'd been so invested in, loved and left. 3 months after arriving in Mt Eliza, I was at the GP talking about the pain in my stomach, the grief that was manifesting itself physically. Every time I sit by a bedside or share with a family after a death or plan a funeral, the funeral itself, or visit someone down the track, maybe on an anniversary, every time that space and experience is different. Grief is relative, it's personal, in that we each experience it differently. When I meet with people after a death, some sob, some are in organisation mode, some might be angry, and some laugh and tell funny stories and then usually apologise because they feel like it might have seemed disrespectful. There's no one way to grieve. There's no right way or wrong way. It's personal. I have this lovely role where I often facilitate and encourage the sharing of stories around a bedside or a kitchen table. A lot of my work is normalising for people. It's okay. The emotions and feelings in your body that perhaps you've never experienced and that take you by complete surprise, it's normal. You never need to say sorry for crying, and you never need to minimise the moment with seeing someone worse off than you. This is your grief and it's real. Eat what you need to eat, sleep when you can sleep, and be kind to yourself. As a friend or family member, you can't really help. You can't make grief go away. There's no cliche or platitude or words that you can say that will make this go away. Support is important. Taking a meal or a casserole, being alongside, all fantastic, unless of course space and quiet are what's needed in that moment. Carers need to have our radars on and do what's helpful in that particular moment. And I have found these jars to be helpful. Grief is not linear, like it gets smaller over time. Rather, over time, life fills out and grows around our grief. Grief is hard and it takes us by surprise, and when we think we're going great, but life will fill out. The difficulty of death and dying, heightened emotions, the complexity of grief, and then throw in things like funeral planning or a will, and for some families this can be a really difficult time. It'll be my experience that most families come together in grief. They share what is a difficult time, caring kindly for each other. But I have on many, many occasions had to navigate difficult family dynamics and conflict. People who cannot sit near each other or be present in the same room. And there's often complex guilt about things that have been done or not done, or things said or not said. It's important that people have an opportunity to participate, to be included in funeral planning and participation and not cut out when relationships are broken. It's more likely that someone will choose not to participate. And every effort should be made to include where possible. And importantly, when it's done well and with grace, this difficult time, in a strange way, can actually be healing for a family or an individual. It's important that truth is always spoken at times of grief and loss. Tragic death, suicide, these things need to be named. It compounds our grief when we sugarcoat personality traits. It's always best to be honest. My own dad, whilst we loved and cared for him, had been a difficult father and husband, and my brother and I name this in our eulogies. One funeral conversation I shared with a son and daughter many, many years ago. We met in a cafe. People that I didn't know until this very moment began. Their very first line was, "We need you to know that our dad was a bastard." Just about every family has a ghost in the closet, something that they don't want named, and yet it shapes who we are. It's the reality of the life that we live, and words can be found to name and navigate something that's difficult. In our Western culture, death can be quite clinical and stark. In many ways, different cultures navigate death and dying, grief and loss better, and we can learn a lot. I like to encourage participation because in my experience, the physical actions, the rituals and outworking of dying, death and saying goodbye can be incredibly cathartic, psychologically and spiritually helpful as we navigate our grief. Thinking through and making some plans for our funeral can be cathartic for someone dying and helpful for their family. Choosing music, readings, looking through photos, funeral location, burial or cremation as examples can all be helpful things to consider. Passing this then to your family with grace for them to do with it what they need to do is beautiful, trusting and helpful. A funeral is, after all, for the people left behind. The planning for that occasion is part of the processing of grief. Funeral plans are mostly helpful and kind for a family, but inappropriate and unsuitable planning can be difficult for a family. And I've had experiences where families have had to choose not to honour someone's wishes, and it can be a hard thing. In a similar way, sometimes someone dying makes it clear that they don't want a funeral. But for those processing grief, no closure, no rites, no goodbye can be so difficult. The rites of a funeral, the ritual, in however you do it, the physicalness of a funeral is such a key part of navigating our grief. I like to encourage families to take part in a funeral service, writing and presenting eulogies where possible, remembering stories, choosing photos, music, readings, selecting clothes to wear. Be hands-on, carry the coffin, light candles, bring treasured items, listen to a love song, place flowers, throw dirt, scatter ashes, light candles, or do something special on anniversaries. Ritual and your rituals are so important at this time. Lastly, I held a long regret for not viewing my grandfather's body after his sudden death. A regret I discovered I held many years later when I was in college and doing some grief and loss training myself. I'd made a decision, largely through fear, I think, to not view my grandfather's body as a teenager. Death is part of our life. And where possible, I encourage people to be present at death, say goodbye, view a body, see with our own eyes. Each of us manages our grief and loss with the life skills we have. It's very personal, individual space. And please take from these thoughts whatever is helpful and leave whatever isn't. I feel very privileged to be compassionately alongside people in these moments, in these most difficult moments of their lives. And I'm certainly happy to stay and talk afterwards with anyone. Thanks.